Hi there, this is Steve Spurrier. You can join University of Florida Hall of Famer Shane Matthews and also the two-time SEC Player of the Year every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, opinions, and some of the biggest names in sports. You can find him on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or you can watch him live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
We got
Okay,
you, my
good.
man.
Okay.
Chris, I know like you've probably talked on a bunch of different shows after the Kentucky game, but we haven't had you on mine. Appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Sure.
I was blown away at some of the things that you wrote and tweeted about. Obviously, first time the Gators have beat a top 10 team and on the road in 20 something years.
That's right.
Tyree Samuel had some stat that was phenomenal. Can you repeat those, please?
All right. Well, you're calling me out here on top of my head. The one that Florida had not beaten a top 10 opponent on the road since beating Mississippi State, I believe, is in January of 2003. That's a lot of Billy Donovan years in there.
The 04s, the national championship teams never beat a top 10 team on the road.
They did. You got to remember the SEC hasn't become a great basketball conference.
Well, good point.
But the last 10 years or so, maybe even less than that, actually. So finding those kind of teams along the way. Now, they would have played some top 10 opponents in neutral site games and stuff like that, certainly during the NCAA tournament or something, but road games would have been rare. The other stat for which you're referencing, I think no player had gotten at least 20 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 blocks, I believe, in a road win over a top 10 team since Tim Duncan did it against Duke in '97.
Wow.
That was pretty impressive number.
I just want to know who sits around in their basement coming up with that stat.
Well, you can plug in the bottom line data, right? So you go, okay, the points, the rebounds, the blocks, top 10 opponent. And you'll be surprised what you can find in some of the databases that are available for statisticians.
All right, before we move forward, Tim, can you explain to him what a quad one win is?
I can. In fact, I'll explain it, but I wrote a story that ran on Wednesday at floridagators.com that really breaks it down. If you want to go back and look at that, it was the setup story for the Kentucky, but basically, excuse me, if you play, so the NET, the NCAA evaluation tool, is the metric that the NCAA really leans heavily on to seed the tournament, the 68 teams at the end of the year. All right, and it's who you played, where you played them, and who you beat is the main criteria. But a quad one is if you play a team that's ranked in the top 30 in the NET at home. Okay, that's a quad one win. A neutral site game against a team in the NET top 50. That's a quadrant one game. And finally, a road game against a NET team ranked in the top 75 is a quadrant one. And Florida will be playing Texas A&M this weekend. And I believe A&M is around in the 40s in the NET right now. I haven't checked today's, but that will be a second straight quad one opportunity. They'll have a third straight quad one opportunity next weekend when Auburn comes to town on Saturday in a game that's already sold out. So I hope that explained it okay. And then after that, there's different metrics for quad twos, quad threes, and quad fours. And if you lose quad threes and fours, those are bad losses.
Yeah. Back to the Kentucky game. I mean, just a phenomenal game. You had unbelievable guard play by both teams.
And I know, Shane, you love guards, don't you?
How good
were those guards the other night?
I mean, their guards were phenomenal. Our two guards were phenomenal. I don't know what it is about our two, but you gotta love players that want the ball in their hand when it's crunch time. And these guys are just clutch. They're not scared to take shots. They're tough. I mean, this backcourt's pretty damn good we got.
I tell you what, I heard some talk radio stuff yesterday where people were they're talking about how this backcourt compared to, say, Torian Green and Lee Humphrey. It doesn't. Okay, we know that. They're saying, oh, maybe Maxwell and Moten. No, it doesn't. The vision I got of these guys, and would be closer to your heart a little bit, Shane. Dan Cross was kind of like, or Zion Pullen, physical guy, probing kind of guy, could pitch out, whatever, get in the mid range and score. And Craig Brown being the Walter Clayton, the assassin on the perimeter with the 3-pointers. This is a really, really good backcourt that's coming into its own a little bit. And you got to remember, these are two guys, and Todd Golden pointed this out the other day. Will Richard and Riley Kugel really the only two guys on this team that played last year. And there is something when you're bringing in 7 transfers, there's something about chemistry, and it does take some time. And process is a real thing in college basketball. I think it's more so in college basketball than it is in college football, because you can make your season along the way in college basketball. If you lose 2 games in college football, what are you playing for the rest of the year in the big picture? But this team is finding itself a little bit. Obviously, winning on the road at Kentucky had only happened here 12 times in 97 years. That's a big signature win for Todd Golden, his biggest one on the road. And speaking to the Garden Variety Gator fan is going to say, well, they beat Kentucky on the road, they got to beat Texas A&M on the road. You watch the league. It's not going to be that easy. No. Texas A&M has 4 quad 1 wins right now. They've played 8 quad 1 games. They're a battle-tested bunch. They've beaten the Gators 4 straight times by a combined 8 points. Every game's come down to the last possession. Wade Taylor IV is a great player. He scored 30 or more in 3 of the last 5 games, I believe. I think he had 35 in a win over Kentucky and 41 in a win over Arkansas a couple weeks ago. The guy's a great player. Florida's going to have their hands full on the road, but if they can go there and steal one, they're going to be in a really good place, both mentally and in the net formula.
Andy wants to know on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, what was the vibe like on the team plane ride home?
Well, it was lively, but not as lively as a post-game locker room, which I get to experience every now and then. And Todd Golden had some really cool words for his team, and he spoke about belief. And to a man, these guys all believed that they not only had a chance to win the game, but maybe would win the game. And they went in there knowing, even after that, what could have been, I think, maybe the worst loss that I would have ever seen if they had lost that Georgia game, but they didn't. They kind of banded together, won that game in overtime, and still carried this unbelievable confidence despite blowing a 21-point lead 4 nights earlier, and kind of just laid it out there. And we're never really. You okay, Shane? Okay.
Yeah, just knocked the computer off.
I mean, when you think about the game. What was it? I think 27 lead changes, 15 ties. The biggest lead over the course of the game was 4 points, I think, until Kentucky was up 4 with 15 seconds left. So just a remarkable win. One of the Gators' really great wins on the road in maybe this century.
Dan was asking, were there a lot of Gator fans there? It was hard to see on TV.
No.
They don't let them in, do they?
No. Hugh Hathcock was there. Okay. Sitting behind the bench, and a couple other people. But when Kentucky doesn't suffer that.
Resell their tickets.
They gobble up their tickets, and it was sold out. I'd been in more lively environments at Rupp Arena before, when Florida went in there with top 10 teams and what have you, unbeaten teams, like in 2014. But it's only the 4th time I've ever been in a Rupp Arena and seen a Gator team win, and I've been there a bunch. And this was it's very satisfying when you see for a fan, I can imagine, to see that, because it just rarely happens. And it's funny. So Walter Clayton just got here. Zion Pullen. Walter comes from Bartow or whatever, by way of Iona. Zion comes from California. Tyrese comes from Montreal. And they just roll into Rupp Arena the first time they ever get one. Where some Gators are with the team 4 and 5 years and can never experience a win there.
Yeah, they probably have no idea what they've done. I love the way they've been playing. I love how they get up and down the floor. They're not scared to take shots. But I'll be damned, Tyree Samuel, do not shoot another 3-pointer.
I mean, Colin Castleton shot him. You got to give these guys. Early shot clock ones are the ones that bug me, especially when you got like a guy who's on his way to making 7 of them, right? But gosh, he takes some shots that you're like, where he's driving and he's off balance and he's kissing the glass and so, but he leads the SEC in field goal percentage right now, Shane. So really? It's you're probably going to have to give him a little bit of freedom and a little bit of rope.
Yeah. Daryl on the Titan Mark text line says, "Good morning, guys. Who is the better player, Dalton Knecht or Reed Sheppard?" I think they're different kind of players, and one of them is about 17 years old.
How good is Reed Sheppard, Shane?
He's the first time I saw him, I was like, this dude, he's not going to wow you with his athleticism, although he's very athletic.
He's incredibly athletic.
He does all the little things that you can't teach.
Well, I think as an athlete, I think he's an 8.5, if not a 9, first of all, because he has much. You've seen him a couple of his run out dunks where he's very much airborne. I think his basketball IQ is off the chain. I mean, when you look at his offensive numbers, I think he's one of the top 5 offensive players in the country in terms of efficiency when you combine his 2-point and 3-point and his assist to turnover ratio. And then you have his defense. He leads the league in steals. There's nothing he doesn't do. And he played all 45 minutes the other day. And it was just the second start of his college career. I talked to an NBA scout before the game. The pros love him. You mentioned Dalton Knecht, 5th-year guy, just a bucket and a half every time he has the ball, it seems like. 5th-year guy, I think, maybe. But he's probably, the NBA is about scoring, and he's certainly going to get a look. But to your point, yeah, they're two very different guys. And Antonio Reeves is a pretty damn good player too.
Very good. And I didn't realize he's a transfer from like Illinois State.
Illinois State, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, just think about it. There's so many good basketball players across the country. Twan says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, Reed is like Lee Humphreys. I love Lee, but Reed Sheppard's he has it all.
Lee's not the athlete. I mean, Lee wouldn't admit to it, but what Lee always says is whenever I ask him, this guy, he was, Lee wanted to go to Tennessee. They took Dane Bradshaw instead. And really? he settled for coming to Florida. And like he always says, he goes, I think things worked out okay for me. He's still the number 1 3-point shooter in NCAA tournament history. So yeah,
no doubt. Yeah. 1966 HBC beers available at Spurs Gridiron Grill, Gator Games in the O-Dome, and select retail outlets. Brisk American Lager 1966 HBC beer. All right, tomorrow afternoon at College Station, Buzz Williams teams, they just muddy up the game. They get after you. Tough place to play. I love the way he coaches. I know he's a weird dude, but he loves his players. In your mind, what do the Gators have to do because if they get this win, Chris, you talk about 2 road games, if you could split them, and a lot of people, including myself, I didn't know if we could split them. I didn't know if we could win either one of them. Now you got a chance to win both.
Right.
I mean, that would really propel you in the SEC.
Well, A&M right now is really struggling offensively. Their offensive numbers are down in the 300s, 3-point shooting, what have you. But like I said before, they're capable of breaking out of that, and Wade Taylor is where it starts and begins. I don't think Tyrese Radford's has had a very good season thus far, especially offensively. They got Henry Coleman, who's I think his 3rd year transferring from Duke, but they've had Florida's number, like I mentioned, 4 straight wins in the series. Everyone they've swept them last year. Year before they beat them twice, including in the SEC tournament, which turned out to be Mike White's last game with Florida. All of them circumstances that came down to the end of the game. They will muddy up the game, like you said, and it's a road game in the SEC. And that they've been, like I said, they've been off this week. They saw that game. He's going to have his guys ready to play. Florida just beat Kentucky. Now they're coming here. They're very confident and everything. And they're at 3-4, I think 12-8 overall. They got their backs against it a little bit. They need a couple wins. Having said that, they've beaten 4 good teams. Shane, they beat Iowa State. I think it was a 4-point game with Houston. Okay. Is Houston any good? So they had
Yeah.
they had them on the ropes in the second half. So they're certainly capable. They've lost a couple games they haven't, but I anticipate Florida will get Texas A&M's best shot on Saturday afternoon.
Bob on the Titan More text line, he goes, "What is the deal with the ice cream at Rupp Arena?" That's on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Billis always talks about. I mean, is this something they do for the media boys?
Well, I don't know how many places you can go in the SEC and basketball arenas and get soft ice cream. And I mean, I'm a soft ice cream fan. I don't eat it very much because, I try not to, but I love it. And I mean, they were bringing it to people I guess if you have the fancy ass tickets on the front row, they bring you beers, they'll bring you food if you want. And I guess if Jay Billis wants a soft ice cream cone, he can have one. I would have eaten one if someone brought me one.
All right. I wanted to get your thoughts real quick about Georgia. I'm flipping through the channels Saturday.
Yeah.
Or is it Saturday? Whenever it was, they were up like 14 with 6 minutes
Wednesday.
to go in the game against
Same
Alabama.
night. It was before the Florida game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was Tuesday night or Wednesday night, whatever it was. I've lost track.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see it go across the ticker that they lost.
Yeah, they got lost by 10.
Yeah, it's like they didn't score for the last 4 minutes of the game.
They got outscored by 23 in the second half. I think they had might have been the lead, might have been as high as 16. I don't know, but that just opens the floodgates for the Mike White games or the Mike White jokes or that kind of thing. And I've seen a lot of games like that that he's coached. I did see the one before that game where he was down by 21 and came back. I've seen a couple of those games too. Do you remember in 2000? It was Nate Oates' first year. They're up. Alabama was in here up 21 in the SEC openers. The Kerry Blackshear, Keontae Johnson team, and Florida came back and beat him. And a month later, Anthony Edwards was here with Georgia. Georgia's up 22, and Florida came back and beat him. So Mike White's teams are never in or out of games. That's a fact. Or certainly a trend of his over the years, and it's unfortunate because they played so well and coming back, and to have that game must have been really, really deflating for them.
Text on the Titan Mar text line from an anonymous texter says he's concerned with the fatigue factor after 2 straight road games. Hope the Gators can rise above it. They got so much nutritional this, nutritional that. It's just part of the game. Who do we have next week? We got 2 home games next week. I haven't looked at the schedule.
No. Just one home game. Just like A&M is off this week. Excuse me. Florida plays Auburn a week from Saturday. And like I said, it's a game that's sold out. Next week, Florida has that open date, and Auburn, I think, on Wednesday plays Alabama. So they'll have a hell of a game before they roll in here.
And as good as Auburn is,
Auburn has struggled on the road. I think they've only played 4 road games, and I think they're 1-3. I'm doing that off the top of my head, but that'll be a very, very big game, regardless of the outcome of this one Saturday. And that's the game, of course. Todd Golden gets his one of his mentors at home. He worked at Auburn 2 years when Bruce Pearl first went there in 2014-15, I believe.
Yeah, well, it was a phenomenal win, no doubt about it. Before we let you go, Chris, your Redskins. What happened with Ben Johnson?
I mean, I've just got to go with what it said that I saw one thing where some people weren't offering him enough money. Maybe they didn't want to give him a 6-year contract. I thought it was. You and I texted Sunday. Well, I thought that was going to happen, and they hired Dan Quinn, who obviously is a very solid coach, and it's been a great defensive coordinator. Wasn't so great in Dallas in the playoffs, but to me, it's like they hired a defensive coordinator who lost the Super Bowl. That's like hiring Ron Rivera again, to me. Now, he may have switched. He may have changed some things. You self-evaluate as a coach in your circumstance. And obviously, I liked him when he was here. Really, really nice guy. And
he's a great guy.
They're flipping the culture up there. So they obviously felt he was the right pick. But I mean, he was clearly a second choice pick, I think.
Who didn't he just hire as offensive coordinator? Who did he hire as
He
that?
has not hired his offensive
Oh, he
coordinator
has
yet.
not.
They're thinking it's going to be the Kubiak kid, who is the play caller for the 49ers right now, although Kyle Shanahan probably calls plays. He's the offensive coordinator for the 49ers.
Yeah, Shanahan calls the plays.
Right.
All right, last text here on the Titan Mark text line from William. Do you think Riley Kugel has bought in and playing better?
Well, I'll ask, what's that guy's name?
William.
William, I'll ask you, do you think he looked bought in the other night when he played 31 minutes? He had 8 points. He had, I think, 4 rebounds, 4 assists without a turnover, and he looked very, very engaged on the defensive end. I thought he was fantastic on guarding Antonio Reeves. I think when they stuck him on him in the last 5 minutes in overtime, I think Reeves was 2 for 6 from the floor, and he was going off before that. So kudos to Riley Kugel for – now, things can change with Riley. I mean, but the more that he's engaged, the better the Gators can be. And if he can, accept the fact that, you can play 30 minutes in this game, but you're not going to score 17 a game like you did last year. The Gators are going to be better off for it. Riley Kugel's going to be better off for it, not only this year, but Riley Kugel's future, because he is still on NBA radar as they scout him and try to figure out, as he tries to figure himself out. The NBA people are still trying to figure him out too.
Yeah, I thought just from watching on TV, I thought that was by far his best game. He looked really engaged to me. Sometimes, he'll knock down a three and then he'll take a three that looks like Chris Harry at Gainesville Health and Fitness shot
What?
it back in the day.
Dude, you're going to make people think that I sucked back then when I did not suck. Okay.
Yeah,
But he
he'll
did
shoot a
he did take
three-pointer
that air ball
sometimes.
three at the time. Huh? What are you
He'll
saying
shoot
about
a three sometimes and it hits like the backboard and then the rim. And I'm just like, what is that? But anyway, all right, Chris. Let everybody, if they can't listen to the game or whatever, they can follow you for your updates on Twitter, correct?
At
Saturday?
Gators Chris on Twitter, and of course go to FloridaGators.com. You can read pregame content, postgame content, and appreciate the clicks. Anybody that's will do that for me.
Well, we appreciate your time. Safe travels, and we'll talk to you next week, my man.
All right. See you, Shane. Take care.
That's Chris Harry. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Duff Hill Home Improvements. This Day in Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Oh, man, where did it go? I may have to come back to it. It was in 2022. No, I'm sorry, 2020. Super Bowl down at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. The Chiefs beat the 49ers 31-20. Your MVP was Pat Mahomes. That was their first victory in 50 years for the Super Bowl. I think they win it again because of him. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. We're going to have Edgar Thompson join us. We're going to get his thoughts on Billy Napier, if there's still going to be some changes made this week. Some people say there will be. I don't know. Shane, who wins a game of horse between you and Chris? Andy, I will win that going away. I will tell you a funny story. So I played intramural basketball. I played high school basketball. So I played intramural basketball with some other football players here. In the intramural league, they had the 3-point. They all, during the season, they have a 3-point contest. So for 2 straight years at the University of Florida, I was your 3-point champ, Andy, from rack to rack in 60 seconds. The problem is I had trouble guarding people, but I could shoot it. Barone on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, says, any expected signings in football for the February signing day? That's a good, correct question. When is that? Is that next Wednesday, I believe? I'll ask Edgar. He'll know. JB says his body language still scares me near the end of regulation, but he made a nice drive and dish after missing a bad 3-pointer. Yeah, I mean, Riley Kugel's very athletic. Needs to just accept his role. I think he has. And this will be if they can win this one at A&M, because like I said earlier, if you split those 2 games on the road, that's huge. But boy, if you can win them both and then have time to rest before Auburn. I didn't realize we had a so-called off day. Andy says he loves to hear me brag on myself. Twan says, Shane, is there any other team that has had a player represent the college team 20 years in the playoffs like Florida softball has streak too? I don't quite understand that question, Twan. Let's take a quick timeout. We're going to come back. We'll be joined by Edgar Thompson from the Orlando Sentinel. Talk a little Gator football, maybe a little bit of golf as well. Also, Gator gymnastics tonight against the Georgia Gym Dogs. I'm sure that'll be on the SEC network. And softball kicks off a week from today, so we'll have Tim Walton on next week. Baseball, I think, is 2 weeks away when the St. John's, they're not the Redmen anymore. What are they, the Red Storm or something? They'll roll into town. Real quick, Tony says, who was the best player on the Swamp Shooters? Ooh, that's a good question. We used to raise a lot of money for high schools. Probably Willie Jackson. Willie was a very good basketball player, very athletic. Kerwin and I could shoot. That's about all we did. Last thing here, Ronnie says, Shane, do you think there was resentment of older coaches towards Armstrong, him being so young, and them paying their dues to speak and him leapfrogging them? That could happen on some staffs. I don't think so on this staff. Really don't. So, all right, we're going to take a timeout, Zach. When we come back, we'll be joined by Edgar Thompson. Keep throwing your text, your questions and comments. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Duffield Home Improvements for your window, siding, and roofing needs. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. We're waiting on Edgar to join us. Real quick, someone, I think it was Reggie here, asking about, can you go out and watch the golf team? I'm assuming the University of Florida. Well, they only host one tournament at the University Golf Course each year, and it's coming up in a couple of weeks, I believe. But yes, you can go out. That if you live near Gainesville, that's a great tournament to go to because it's an easy course to walk. They usually have a lot of teams from the Southeast playing in it, and it's a good time to go watch a little bit of golf for sure. All right, what Twan was saying on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Florida has a streak in the NFL of players making the playoffs 20 consecutive years. Do any other teams have or had this streak this long? I would think so. I'm not 100% sure on that. I would think maybe an Ohio State or an Alabama, Michigan possibly. But that's a good question. We do have some guys that are on the Chiefs. I don't think the Gators have anybody on the Niners team. But like I said, Tommy Townsend, tremendous punter. He hit the lottery. he may go to a damn Super Bowl every year he's in the league, being on Mahomes' team. Shane says, good to have Chris on. He knows his hoops. He does. He is the main guy. Boy, he was Billy Donovan's main guy when Billy was here. It's when you think about it, but Chris made a good point. You know, it's hard to believe when they kept talking about that was the first win over a top 10 team on the road in 20 something years. You go back to the back-to-back national title team, all the Billy Donovan, but the SEC was not what it is today. Andy asked, did you play in the Senior Bowl or the East-West Shrine game? No, I played in the Japan Bowl because Coach Spurrier coached, so he asked me to go to that, and then I played in the Hula Bowl. So I probably should have played in the Senior Bowl. Maybe it would have helped me get drafted. This guy may or may not be drafted one day into the National Football League. Let's go to the Titan Amar hotline, and it's Edgar Thompson. Edgar, did you play in the East-West Shrine game?
The Hula Bowl used to be awesome when I was like young.
Yeah.
Because all the guys would be wearing their helmets.
Correct.
So it was kind of like the Pro Bowl where everybody would have their helmet. So it was very unique. Those games have really kind of faded. So
yeah, they're terrible now. Terrible.
Well, yeah, they're just not as popular. They were cool when I was a kid. The Pro Bowl used to be fun.
What was cool about the Hula Bowl, like I went from Japan straight to Hawaii, but Coach Spurrier coached one of the, I guess, the East team in the Japan Bowl. My dad got to go be like an assistant coach. He invited him. So that was cool. And then my two coaches for my team in the Hula Bowl were Lou Holtz and Eddie Robinson.
Oh,
so
man.
That was pretty cool.
That's very, I mean, I had no idea you'd gone to Japan to play a football game. That's pretty wild.
I went to Japan twice to play football, Edgar. I went as a college athlete in the Japan Bowl. And then when Coach Spurrier was with the Redskins, we played the first preseason game in Osaka, Japan.
Oh.
I didn't play. He just played all the other guys. All the veterans didn't have to play in that game, but it's a long ways to go for a preseason game. Tony says, I'm big in Japan. Yes, they all know me over there, Tony.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The blue-gray game was the one on Christmas Day. That was the one I used to watch all the time.
What's the one in Mobile?
That's the Senior Bowl. But
of course,
they've always had that one. That's the big one now.
I do remember
on Christmas Day, they used to have the blue-gray game, which I think was up in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
So anyway, Edgar, let's speaking of
that was a dumb question. I've gone to the damn Senior Bowl several times for work, but no, the blue-gray. I was trying to think. Where's the East-West Shrine? They moved.
Well, it used to be out at like Palo Alto back when I was playing. I think they played in like St. Pete now. Maybe they don't even have
Florida. It's in Florida.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of the Senior Bowl, I'm not sure how many Gators are there. I know Ricky Pearsall's there. I saw some clips on Twitter. It doesn't surprise me one bit because I've been saying, and he's a top 10 wide receiver at the University of Florida, in my opinion. I don't know where I would rank him, but I think he's a top 10. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player at the next level because he's got great shiftiness. He runs great routes and he catches the football. Have you heard anything about what's going on over there?
I see Kingsley's there. I'm looking at the rosters right now. I think that might be the whole roster. But yeah, Kingsley. So he's getting a shot despite, being injured pretty much all year. Some Florida State guys. But Fisk, that number 55, that defensive tackle's there. He was a beast. But yeah, Ricky's there. Johnny Wilson's there too. So that's kind of cool for them, right? They were former teammates at Arizona State. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up in Florida and Florida State. So that's kind of wild. But yeah. A lot of cool experiences you get from playing the game, right?
Oh, there's no question about that. Let's talk about the Gators.
Sure.
I don't know if we've had you on since they hired the special teams analyst, or whatever you want to call him, from the Patriots.
That was just Sunday, so no.
Yeah, and then I saw something this morning when I woke up on Twitter. Do you think there are going to be any more moves made on the staff? Are you hearing anything?
Well, so people's contracts ran out on January 31st. So if your contract wasn't renewed on whatever day, what day is that? Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday, then you're not back. And it doesn't seem that's happened. It at least hasn't gotten out yet. If it has with certain guys, I was hearing that's not going to happen, that the staff's the staff now. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be some responsibility shifts. And we've discussed this, I think, you and I, and it's been out there for a while. I mean, maybe Russ Callaway potentially is involved in the play calling more. If not taking over play calling, I'm not sure. I'm not reporting that. That's something that's potentially going on. I think he was involved last year as the season went on somewhat more in the offensive meetings. There was some dinner or something that was announced that people said on Twitter, DJ Lagway went to dinner with Billy Napier, blah, blah, Russ Callaway. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting that he was there. So it seems this was a while back. So it seems he's more involved. So that's something people have been waiting for. And you and I have debated, does he need to hire a play caller? If Billy's betting on Billy, I have no problem with that. You've said that too. That your back's against the wall. You believe in what you're doing. Your offense showed signs, especially in the second half of the season, of being good or having potential. You got guys, Mertz back for a second year. Eugene Wilson a second year. Now you lost Ricky, but you're hoping that, Andy Jean's healthy this year. Mizell takes the jump. You have other pieces coming in. You brought in the kid from Wisconsin who really meshed well with Graham in 2022. Right? I don't, Shamir Dyke or something. He had a good year in 2022 with Graham. So, there are some pieces, and the tight ends I like.
Yeah. I mean, from a skill standpoint, when you look at their offense, and I'm like a broken record, it needs to be Andy Jean, Wilson, Mizell, and then your tight end. And then you mix in, what's the new kid, the really fast one that we signed?
Oh man, I like him.
He needs to be in the mix. And then you throw in the Wisconsin guy. But those are the guys that can make plays. Like, when you, as a quarterback, there's no better feeling, Edgar, than when you can throw a slant or a hitch. The guy can spin and make one move and get you 20 or 30. Or
Hawkins.
Hawkins. Yeah, Hawkins.
Yeah, he's a burner. But this kid from Wisconsin, not to interrupt you, which I tend to do, sorry. Shamir Dyke, the guy was really 6'1", 200, solid guy, solid, good size. And he was really good with Graham in 2022. I think he had 6 scores and 50 catches, whatever it was. So they have kind of some chemistry too. So, I think he's going to factor.
I like our skill guys, and I like our running back room a lot. They're not going to miss a beat at the running back position.
You don't think Etienne's a huge loss?
I think Etienne's a very good player. He's explosive, but I think some of these young kids they have coming in are just as explosive. I don't think Etienne's going to get as many carries as he thinks at Georgia. We've talked about his blocking. He's going to have to get a lot better there.
These guys, I just need a pronunciation chart. On our podcast with Mark Long, I mess up names all the time. But the Daniels kid from Mississippi, back in your old stomping grounds, I'm really intrigued with him. He seems like he's a home run threat.
He is. We have a couple of Facebook Live comments here. Laney says, if Billy is calling plays, fine, but we better find a way not to take a delay game coming out of timeout. I agree with that. That's the dude sitting in the box. Need to help with that. Anything defensively that you heard of as from a standpoint, I assume Graham Mertz is going to be cleared to play, coming off his shoulder. I saw pictures of him cleaning and jerking and stuff. So it looks like his shoulder's fine. Jack Pyburn, I think, is coming off a knee. But have you heard anything from the injury standpoint?
Well, not anything there, but obviously the staff's been reconfigured completely. Ron Roberts coming in, serving as like a co-DC, involved with linebacker coaching, now that Jay Bateman's gone. And, he and Austin Armstrong go back a bit. And when I did a story on Austin, did we talk about this on here? When I did a story on Austin last summer, Ron was one of the people he suggested I speak with. So I spoke with Ron about Austin, and he was gushing, thinks he's a rising star. And I think, it was a rough year for the guy, but he's 30-year-old guy last year. So I'm not rushing a judgment on Austin Armstrong. And now he's going to have a mentorish veteran voice with a lot of success in his past. And Ron Roberts was a lower level of, granted, head coach, a couple of stops, who was successful. Southeast Louisiana and Delta State. I mean, he had success there. And I know it's not SEC football, but this guy, he was a good addition. I like him a lot. And then Will Harris, we talked about him, but if you go back to his Washington years, the guy was like, his defense 2022, was it? No, 2021 Washington Huskies just dominated like pass defense nationally, led in multiple categories. And the year before were very good. And in 18 were really good. Only had 1 year they weren't like really top. So that was a good acquisition. And I know I'm forgetting someone. Who's the D-line coach? Oh, yeah, Gerald Chapman from Tulane. And I don't know enough about him, but when my friend who covers Tulane heard that he was leaving, I called him and said, "You know about this?" He's like, "Oh, man, that's a big loss." So I think I'm not saying Billy, like, that Corey Raymond wasn't a loss, or Sean Spencer wasn't a good coach, or Bateman isn't a loss, but it's not, I'll be interested to see how the defense comes together, as will everyone. Like you said, if the defense, you've said this every time we're on here, the defense is as bad as last year, they're in trouble.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Edgar, we got a couple of questions here. I don't know if you know about the health of these players,
No.
but they are coming back this year. I don't know if they'll be ready for the spring, but on YouTube, people want to know about Cam Carroll and Justice Boone. Have you heard anything? Will they be ready to go in the spring?
I mean, they're a ways past those injuries now. So you would expect. I mean, Justice Boone blew out his knee like August 5th or whatever. Is brutal, like the first day or two of camp. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to be ready for spring. I mean, right, would he? I mean, ACL, August?
Probably not. I mean, I don't think they would even.
No contact,
Yeah.
but he's ready for the season. And Cam Carroll, similarly. I don't think you're going to pound on those guys during the spring, but they'll be running and all that. No non-contact, I would expect. Cam Carroll, he's behind kind of a piece that people maybe forgotten about. I'm excited to see him if he's healthy. But that was a kind of a blow, especially for the kid. I mean, the guy missed 2 consecutive seasons to injury, including that 12-1 season with Tulane.
Yeah. Tony's got a good point here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon. These guys getting hired only because they can recruit, those days are pretty much over due to NIL. Need coaches who can develop now. It's interesting. I saw a clip on Twitter. Kevin Steele, who's coached forever, I think he's now officially retired. He was telling a story how, he was in a home recruiting a kid. This is when he was at Alabama, I think, in the last year or so. And, talking about the school, the national championships, the mom and dad are like, yes, we want to come play for Nick Saban, get us to the National Football League, blah, blah, blah. And he said the last thing they go was, well, coach, how much money can you offer us? Because we're getting this over here. Y'all aren't even close. And that's what it is. I don't think people really understand that, but if a kid leaves your program, he is pretty much getting more money somewhere else.
I don't dispute that, but you got to be able to connect with the guys too on some level, right? And you got to be able to sell them on, like you said, the NFL. You got to be able to develop. You do have to be able to develop them, but guys want to play for winners too.
Yeah,
guys want to play with people for someone they like and they feel like they're going to learn from. But yeah, the money is money is the number one thing. It's like, what were we on here saying? I said, I mean, my joke was, it's like NIL, playing time, NIL facility, or excuse me, maybe like, if they're winning, NIL facilities. I mean, facilities, Florida did all this and all that, and that's like 8th on the list now, with like money being like 5 spots. Now, yesterday I sat down with Freddie Weeby for a while, and I'm going to write this next week, and I don't care about foreshadowing it, I suppose, but Florida Victorious is shifting its strategy, and it's definitely recognizes that it needs to improve its efforts. You know, getting more people involved, getting more awareness out there, getting just like you said on here. I think the last time I was on here, what did you say? Grove Collective, about 6,000. Florida Victorious, you know, half that, not even. And they understand that's key.
I saw Clay Travis. I don't know if you know Clay Travis, but I follow him on Twitter. He you know, he's a Tennessee guy and a Vanderbilt. I think he went to law school at Vanderbilt.
He went to law school, man.
But I saw where he was saying, with all this nonsense going on with the NCAA, with the you know, their NIL, they're being investigated or whatever. I think he said there, whatever the Tennessee Collective, Big Orange or whatever it's called, they had like 3,800 members. He said, if y'all get to 5,000 in the next week, I will write a check for $100,000 to the collective. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's gotten to be all about the money. And I asked them, speaking of these Florida Victorious guys, is it like, do you feel like you're making all this effort, you know, putting all this energy and time into this, and then 2 years from now, they're just going to be paying players or contracting players? You know, that's the big word, is like, they're going to become paid employees. And their comments like, look, man, I mean, you can't just sit around and let the program go to hell in a handbasket, you know, while you're waiting to see what happens. So they're being very proactive over there. I'm sure listeners are glad to hear that, because that's been the question about how is the NIL at Florida doing, because they're not getting. I looked yesterday, they have 4 of the top 200 transfers. Okay. Slackman's number 1. He's 41. And then one of them, and then Pup Howard, linebacker, I think he's like 87. Jameer Grimsley's 91. I don't even consider him a transfer. The guy was at Alabama 2 weeks, and he's a high school player last season, so he doesn't even count to me. And then Taquezi Bridges is 179. So you have 3 essentially of the top 200 transfers. You got to do better than that, I think, in this day and age, right? Especially if you're trying to close the gap. Don't you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, when it comes to, this is just my belief, whether it's right or wrong, you have to have the money to offer these kids. But I believe that our structure, from what I've been told, is we have set dollar amounts for kind of like this position. You know, it's kind of like the NFL. You don't want to overpay at a position. I think that's how they do it. I could be wrong. I know some teams do that.
No, that's how they do it.
Yeah. So if Edgar's our starting tailback and we're paying him $300,000, and this kid hears that this other school's paying their tailbacks $400,000, well, he's just going to go in the portal. Now, we may renegotiate, but I think we're sticking to our guns, which is probably smart, because there are no rules or regulations. It's a mess right now. Richard has this comment on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Florida Victorious gives 90% of the funds collected to the players. They keep 10%. I think they keep too much. I'm sure JC doesn't charge his clients 10%. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have any idea. Do you know anything about that, Edgar?
I don't, but they have 10 employees now. I asked that, like, because they've added staff. I don't know that Nate Barber, who's like, I don't know if he's a CEO, the Harvard MBA, smart guy, successful financial guy, I believe. Maybe he doesn't need the cut, but you got to pay staff. You got to have a staff. So
Mhm.
I don't know enough of the ins and outs on that, but back to the point on transfer, Shane. How do you think the Gators are doing? Now I'm asking you questions, but how do you think they're doing in the portal? Because like I'm saying, when you get 3 out of 200, that
Well,
doesn't seem to be as many as you need when you're in the position Florida is roster talent.
correct. But I go back to, and whether I'm right or wrong, this is my belief. A, you need to be winning, which we're not winning right
Sure.
now. And you have to offer the kids more than what the other schools are offering. And when you don't have that to offer, you're stuck.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
that's kind of what I'm saying. So they got
yeah.
to do better. They have, yeah.
And
It's all chicken
people
egg.
keep, the Gator fan, and I get it. They're like, we're the University of Florida. We got money. You don't have the money like some of these other schools, the money that they give to their football programs. That's just my belief. I have no concrete evidence of that, but I've been around the SEC for a long, long time, and people don't want to believe it. Ole Miss has deep, deep pockets. They were doing it illegally for a long time with Hugh Freeze, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and the players kind of like Lane kind of just runs a loose ship over there. They're not buttoned up over there. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do not think that we have the bankroll that some of the other schools have.
Well, the answer is what Florida Victorious, I guess, is attempting to do is trying to get more people throwing in, even if it's nominal amounts of money, feeling like, flood the zone. We'll see if they can convince people to do it. They feel like awareness is not there, that a lot of people just don't even really know what Florida Victorious is. They kind of know it's a funding arm, but they don't know how it really works, or the opportunities. They're trying to sell this as, hey, we're giving opportunities to young people to, get out in the community. They're tied to like 11 charities, I believe, and then opportunities for fans too to meet players and do things and build a connection. And I don't know if like that resonates and fans are just like, look, just win. Here's my money, win. I don't care about that other stuff. Some people do. We'll see what we'll see what they sell and how they're able to do. But this is a huge off season, not only for Billy and the Gators, but for Florida Victorious.
All right, so Dan says, before we get out here, last comment, he said, there's a reason all these other SEC schools had better facilities before Florida. Now it's NIL.
Good point. I won't
Mhm.
argue, but the philosophy too is part of it, as we've discussed, right? Going back to
Right.
the previous regime,
Mhm.
facilities, the arms race did not interest Jeremy Foley and some of these people. They didn't think it was necessary because of Florida. And a lot of these decisions were made based on previous experience during the Urban Meyer era, the Steve Spurrier era, when Florida had it up and running. We don't need to do that. Well, they got behind there. Then there's also the fact that Jeremy came up under the Charlie Pell era, which was a nightmare for the program and a national, embarrassment, and probably legal now, right?
Mhm.
but so he created this culture of compliance. And so a lot of people are reluctant, especially the older guard, which is still the average fan season ticket holders pushing 60 years old. So the older kind of guard who's been around this program for a while is been kind of had it, beaten into them, so to speak, or been trained, hey, this isn't how we operate. So you're having to get, shift in mentality to get people to do it. And then you add the fact that, there's been so much instability and the losing seasons and all these things. And it's just become this, complex puzzle to like suddenly bring all this together and get people in lockstep and putting the money into the kitty.
Yep. Good stuff as always, Edgar. We appreciate your time. When people can read about your article on Florida Victorious.
I mean, I'm gonna work. It'll be done sometime late next week. I mean, we got signing day. I got a bunch of other things going on, and I'm sitting down, I think Tuesday with some folks. But
Okay.
yeah, I talked to Fred. I just kind of got the ball rolling yesterday, but it'll be later next week. I'm actually
All
looking
right.
forward to writing. It was informative.
Good stuff. Appreciate your time,
Thank
my
you.
man.
Thanks
That's
for
Edgar
having me.
Thompson joining us on the Titan More Hotline. Hope everybody enjoyed today's program. Have a great weekend. Hopefully the Gators beat the Ags, and we'll talk about it on Monday. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks.